your Menches, your Morons, your headlines right here on the Israel Brief with me, Rolene Marks, where we take a look at those top stories from Israel. We do it every Monday to Thursday. I almost forgot what day it was, in the best of company. As always, the Israel Brief is brought to you in partnership with these guys, Lay of the Land. And if you like our content and our community is growing, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Let's get the news from Israel, the stuff you're not going to hear in your mainstream media, out to as many people as possible. Well, as I said in the intro, we will be talking Menches and we will be talking Morons because it is Thursday, which means I take a look at your nominations. And the nomination for Top Moron of the Week is pretty unanimous. I always love to get a barometer of what you guys are thinking out there. I will also be taking the audience question, quite a nice audience question today, because it gives me an opportunity to riff a little bit about what we see online. And as always, I am here to remind you that it is day 685 since the 7th of October, and that we still have 50 hostages languishing in hell in Gaza. We want them all home now. So before we get into the juicy stuff that you guys love, let's take a look at those headlines, and we begin with Operation Gideon's Chariots Part 2. And this is Israel's final push into the last remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza. Now, of course, there's a whole variety of different opinions out there whether or not this is the right thing for Israel to be doing. A lot of international condemnation from organizations like the Red Cross, from the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and even the hostages' families have said to Prime Minister Netanyahu, please accept a partial deal and let's get at least some of our hostages back. However, Israel's stance for the moment is that we want all of our hostages back at once, although we have not ruled out a partial deal. At the moment, with regards to any kind of ceasefire or deal, there is a general blackout on information that is being given to us in the media. Nevertheless, speaking about the media, and the IDF's chief spokesperson, Efri Defrin, addressed the foreign press yesterday, and he said that Israel's operation to take Gaza City has begun, that the IDF troops on the outskirts of Gaza City. So if we look at the map of the Gaza Strip, Israel controls about 75% of the Strip. We are moving as many civilians into the Al-Mawasi humanitarian zone as expediently as possible to get them out of harm's way. Now, a few days ago, Hamas very cynically and appallingly put out messages to civilians in Gaza not to exit the combat zones. Hamas have stated again and again and again and again that they are prepared to use their civilian population as human shields. In fact, as far back, I think it was about 2014, they said they are proud that their civilians will stop the bombs with their chests. Israel has mobilized about 60,000 reservists and extended the service time of about 20,000 reservists. Now, the last Hamas strongholds are in Zaytun and in Gaza City. I could be wrong about Zaytun, but definitely Gaza City. And there's a push there to apply as much pressure onto the remaining Hamas battalions so that we can get our hostages back. There can be nothing more important than our hostages being returned to us. As my shirt says, bring them home now. This has been the campaign since the 7th of October, and we will not stop speaking about our hostages. Going further afield, and the US State Department announced last night that they will be sanctioning 4 officials from the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Now, the move by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has been welcomed by Prime Minister Netanyahu, as well as members of Knesset like Benny Gantz and the Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar. Now, the State Department have said that the ICC, in launching investigations into the US conduct in Afghanistan and issuing arrest warrants for Prime Minister Netanyahu and former Defense Chief Yoav Gallant, ignores the laws of national sovereignty, and it kind of initiates lawfare against the United States and their ally Israel. And just on a note of that, we don't see any arrest warrants for al-Shara in Syria and war criminals around the world. It seems that the ICC are very, very selective in who they want to bring to justice, which also goes to show that the ICC has become extremely politicized. Nevertheless, neither Israel or the United States are signatories to the Rome Statute, which is the foundational document which precipitates the ICC, and therefore the ICC technically has no jurisdiction. Yesterday, the IDF raided several commando outposts on the Mount Hermon side of the Syrian border and found about 300 weapons that were located and confiscated. Now, along with that, we've also had updates from the Saudi daily Al Arabiya that says that an Israeli delegation has met with the Syrian foreign minister and basically have agreed on about 80% of the points of disputes between the two countries. Now, we know that these talks are the continuation of talks that were held in Paris and in Baku in Azerbaijan. And while we don't know exactly what are the bones or the points of contention, we do know from Al Arabiya that apparently 80% of them have been settled. And finally, this is quite an extraordinary story, and this broke earlier today. And this follows secret negotiations that have seen the release of an Israeli held captive in Lebanon for about a year. So the captive was taken by the Red Cross to the Rosh HaNikra crossing. This is from the north of Israel into Lebanon, where he was met by Israel's representative for the hostages and the missings at the crossing. He was then taken for questioning and a preliminary medical examination and has been taken to hospital where he will meet with his family. This is absolutely quite extraordinary because nobody really knew that these negotiations were happening. It just goes to show that, you know, in Israel, when we think that it's a slow news day or that there's not much happening, there is always something happening. So headlines done. Let's take a look at the audience question, and it comes from Antonia in Israel, who says, Ro, did you see Prime Minister's interview on trigonometry? What did you think? So if you haven't been following, Trigonometry is a podcast that is hosted by Konstantin Kissin and his co-host Francois Foster. It's an excellent podcast. It's called Trigonometry, very, very clever title. And they have interviewed a whole host of people, everybody from Andrew Fox, for probably one of the most important interviews on the war between Israel and Hamas that people should see. They've interviewed John Spencer. They've also interviewed people like Piers Morgan and Coulter, Tommy Robinson, and a whole host of different views and really topical subjects and people who make the news. But they scored quite the coup when they managed to get Prime Minister Netanyahu to sit for about a 40-minute interview. And what I found very, very good about this podcast, first of all, is that they scored a major coup. The legacy media like the BBC, Sky News, with the exception of Sky News Australia, who have their own interview with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is not speaking there, but rather he is going onto these podcasts, probably to start appealing to a different audience base, and also getting Israel's message out there. Because, guys, we know that Israel, at our own PR, we're pretty dismal at that. We might be winning the kinetic war, but when it comes to our PR, we're pretty dismal. But it goes to show, my takeaways from that, Antonio, is it goes to show that many people, I think I said it earlier this week, are turning away from traditional legacy media, who they don't see as in touch with the people, who they don't see as presenting the facts that have really, in this conflict, most of them have become stenographers for Hamas. They just parrot those talking points. But I thought that Constantine and Francois were excellent. They asked difficult questions. They asked the probing questions. They pushed back at the Prime Minister, not to attack him in any way, but to ask those questions I think a lot of you want answered. Questions about, did Israel know about the tunnels? Did we give money via Qatar to Hamas? What about the visuals that we see? What exactly is Israel's position on many issues? And I really, really thought what was excellent is that, unlike certain other podcasters, no names mentioned, Piers Morgan, they aren't there for the clickbait, and they aren't there to be sensationalistic. And there goes my light. These things happen while you are live. They aren't there for that. They are there to listen, to get perspectives, and to bring you a variety of different perspectives and different opinions, so that you can make an informed opinion. So to answer your question, Antonio, I thought it was an excellent interview, well worth listening to from beginning to the very end. But you guys, you be the judge of that, and let me know in the comments if you watched it and what your thoughts were. So now, before we head off into the weekend and I go stick my head inside a freezer, let's take a look at your nominations for the Menches and the Morons of the week. Now, I know that there are a few of you who think that my Yiddish is grammatically incorrect, and you are absolutely correct. I do not speak grammatically correct Yiddish. I should be saying Menschen, and point taken. But I don't know, kind of saying Menches is kind of working for me. So our Menches of this week are, we have three. We have President Herzog, for the incredible way that he has conducted himself through this war, and for his incredible empathy, especially towards our hostage families. We have the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, who continue, despite also the smear campaigns against them, continue to successfully feed millions or hand out millions of meals in Gaza every single day under very, very dangerous conditions, and under a smear campaign by the UN and by NGOs and by the mainstream media, who for some reason think that it's a great idea to attack the people feeding civilians in Gaza. And another lovely recommendation is for the President of Zambia. As I reported earlier this week, Israel has reopened our embassy in the capital of Zambia, and we look forward to increased ties, not just between Zambia and Israel, but between African countries and the state of Israel. And now for your morons. So I'm going to count them down. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer. A lot of the recommendations for Starmer mentioned, first of all, the recognition and the position that Starmer has taken and his government have taken on recognizing a Palestinian state, and their continued criticism of Israel. But also a lot of you say, from the UK, who recommended Starmer, say it is because he's two-tier Keir. And coming in at number one, it is a tie between Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, or somebody calls him Akbar Albanese, or Alba Akbar, that's what they call him. I think that's quite funny, for his extreme hostility against Prime Minister Netanyahu and the State of Israel, as well as his Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who blames Netanyahu for isolating Israel, and for the Minister of the Interior, Tony Burke, also for his attacks on the Prime Minister. Now, whether you like the Prime Minister or you don't like the Prime Minister, and we have many different opinions here in Israel, including myself, there are many areas where I have a lot of criticism for the Prime Minister. I will say one thing to the Australian leadership, and that is, you can't keep criticizing our country and our leader and not expect pushback. Now, I have immense respect for Australian Jewish communal leaders who've actually written to Prime Minister Netanyahu and have said, okay, enough's enough. And I agree. It's enough. It's unbecoming of world leaders to keep on engaging in this tit for tat. You've all said what you wanted to say. Now, let's draw a line under that. As we would say here in Israel, chalas, ze maspik. It's enough. But as was demonstrated by Foreign Minister Saar earlier this week, where he also addressed the attacks from the Danish Prime Minister on Prime Minister Netanyahu, it's like, it's enough. You know, we wouldn't have the audacity to criticize you. And while we consider these countries friendly countries, at the end of the day, it's not seen by Israelis as just an attack on our Prime Minister. It is seen as an attack on us as Israelis, and it certainly doesn't help the already flaming atmosphere of anti-Semitism around the world. So let's let the adults into the room, and let's consider how we criticize those we still consider allies. So that's it from me for today, guys. Don't forget to join me again next week for your news, your views, some rants, and of course, no bull poo-poo. And in the meantime, don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. Our YouTube channel is right here at the Israel Brief. So let's get those eyeballs on the news from Israel. Please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. We're on Facebook at Lottel's site, on Instagram at Rolene_Marks, on LinkedIn at Rolene Marks, on Substack at Rolene Marks. Who knew I had a Substack? Apparently I do. And on X at Lay of the Land 5. Guys, God bless you all. Have a wonderful weekend. You know I love you. And I will see you again on Monday. Shabbat Shalom.